Happy Friday, everybody. We are back in action with another True Crime Vampires from History episode coming at you right now. And today we're going to be going to Brazil to discuss one Marcelo Costa de Andrade. Now, Marcelo is considered to be the most notorious serial unaliver from Brazil. He was born January 2nd, 1967 in Rio de Janeiro, and he was raised in the Hiroshima slum of Rio. Now, he came from a very dysfunctional family, and both his mother and her maid in the household were abused by his father. So, he's also known as the Nitorei vampire. I don't know if I said that right. And having been the son of poor migrants, he grew up in an area that it's totally, completely a slum. Like, it was a very hard place to be from. In fact, he lived without running water. When they say slum, it's like Skid Row, you would say. That would be the equivalent. And he was regularly subjected to beatings by his grandfather and different people that had dated his parents. He had a stepfather and a stepmother who were both abusive to him. And just a really terrible child. Eventually, he was the victim of an SA. Now, Marcelo was SA'd at the age of 10, and at about the same time, he was sent to a reformatory school, but he escaped and returned to the streets, in which time he began a career as a street SW worker. He was only 14 years old when he really began to pursue that career. And by the time he was 16 years old, he entered into a relationship with an older male, a much older male. And sometime between that time period and around the age of 17, he actually tried to SA his younger 10-year-old brother. Around April of 1991, Marcelo was apparently abandoned by his elder male lover. And this is when his spree of unalivings began. In subheadlines, he's also called the Monstro de Rio. And this is because some of his acts were quite heinous. In fact, so far, I think he might be one of the worst that I have covered in this series. So he was a necrophiliac and also a yak. It's, just these words. Now, he never claimed to be a vampire in and of his own accord, but he did say that he drank his victims' life fluids in order to become as beautiful as they were. He had a total of 14 victims. This is the worst part. All of his victims were between the ages of 6 and 13 and found in those slums. His spree ran from April until December of 1991, and his preferred method of unaliving was strangulation, followed by mutilation and consumption of the life fluids of his victims. Remember, these were all children. It's awful. On December the 18th of 1991, his reign of terror came to an end, and he was tried and found mentally competent on April the 26th of 1993. He was then sent to Hyder Carrillo Psychiatric Hospital. Sent to Hyder Carrillo Psychiatric Hospital, he later escaped there on January 24th of 1997, only to be rearrested that same year on February 5th. When he was arrested, he said that he was making his way to quote-unquote Holy Land, and the things that he did were just, like I said, heinous. One of his victims, by the name of Alter de Abreu, he was an intended victim, happened to have a 6-year-old brother named Ivan when they met Marcelo. Marcelo actually strangled Alter's little brother Ivan right in front of him, and then confessed to be in love with this young boy and that he wanted him to live with him. And so the little boy went with him, and stayed the night with him, and then the next morning, when he had an opportunity, he escaped. When Ater first returned home without his little brother, he told his family that he had lost him. Obviously, he was scared, but after a few days, his sister was able to coax the truth from him, and they immediately went to the police, and it was at that time that Marcelo was arrested at work. At first, the police thought that Ivan's unaliving might have been just a one-off incident, but when they arrested Marcelo, he confessed and led them to the remains of his other victims. Some of the things that he did included practicing decapitation of one of the victims, crushing the skull of one of the victims, and from 2 of the victims, he actually consumed their life fluids. And of course, he said the reason for doing that was he believed that it would make them as beautiful as his victim. He also made the wild and bold declaration because he believed in a sermon he had heard from the Universal Church of the Kingdom of God that said that all children who pass away before the age of 13 are automatically returned to God, and so that he had done his victims a favor by doing that. And that is the story of the vampire of Nitorei, El Monstro del Rio, Marcelo Costa de Andrade, the most infamous serial unaliver from Brazil. Till next time, y'all stay safe out there and have a happy Friday.